Hey everyone, so today we're going to be covering the repository on LASO as well as we're going to be covering the road, as the road is a very short mission, so we're just going to tack that right onto the end of this video here, and I'll include timestamps to where that mission begins. But without any further interruptions, let's get into it. So as you load into repository, we're just going to be running past this entire first section. These first couple rooms, they're not even going to have any enemies, so just no worries there. We're just going to thrust or spam our way through the end. And once you go through the next hallway, there's going to be a bunch of light bridges that you're going to have to cross with sentinels wandering about. Normally you'd have to fight them, but luckily since we're just active camo spamming, we can just run past them as well. And that's pretty much going to be what most of this level is just running past enemies, and there's only going to be a couple sections so it's going to be difficult, notably the two sections where you have to fight against a couple brute chieftains. But don't worry, we have strategies for both of those, so we'll get to that later. Now once you get into this next room where there's even more sentinels roaming about, you're actually going to have to kill all of the sentinels in order to progress in this room here. So what I like to do is I like to go off into the side room and just pick off the sentinels that are in here. And the sentinels that we ran past in the first section of this room will generally start to congregate by this door on the other side of this room here. So as we walk into this room, what we're going to be doing is we're just going to make sure that the sentinels are aware that we're over here. So you can see they're already kind of congregating over there, so we're just going to take a pop shot at with the rocket launcher at one of the sentinels, and you can see how all the sentinels are starting to group up in this hallway. We're just going to get our sword and let them funnel into us while we take them out one by one. And this is pretty much going to be the strategy we're doing for all of the sentinels, and there's going to be two more sentinels that will be spawning on the other end of the room after we're done killing the ones here. You can see now that pretty much most of the sentinels done. I think we got one more left. Sometimes they like to get stuck and they don't like to move. You just double make sure that they're aware that you're there. Just take another shot at them with the rocket launcher. You can see now he's finally starting to get close. But he's not getting close enough for us to sword, so we're just going to finish him off with the rocket launcher. Now as you make your way closer to the bridge, you can see two more sentinels start to spawn on that end. So we're just going to go up to the console and then run back to the door. And again, we're just going to let them know that we're there, shoot our rockets at them, and let them come to us. Now these ones might take a little bit of time in order to lure over, as they sometimes don't like to come over. But it won't be too bad. Normally you can just come in, take another shot with a rocket launcher, and sometimes they'll even just sit still and let you shoot at them. So if that's the case, you can just take them out with the rockets there. So you can see that one, I was able to launch a little bit closer to me and he started becoming in range. And now he'll start making his way over. We lost a little bit of shields here since we got shot with a couple of the shock rifles that they have. So we're just going to get our shields back with that guy. Now this one really didn't want to come over, so I'm just trying to make sure I see where he is, because he was hiding below the platform a little bit. And we're just going to go up and we're just going to finish him off with the rocket launcher since he didn't want to come to us. If you go to the console, it'll let you know if you haven't killed all of them. In my case, I didn't kill all the sentinels, and there ended up being one stuck in the other room. And that can happen sometimes if you don't kill all of them when you first enter the giant room with the sentinels, as when you're skipping past some of them in order to get most of them to funnel into that doorway we were killing them at, one or two of them can sometimes get stuck or just get lost. And you can see in this case that the sentinel just kind of got stuck on the doorway heading into there, and I was able to just shoot him with two rocket launchers and kill him that way. So just go back, double check everything, and you'll be good to progress through the level that way. And now we're good to just progress on to the rest of the level. So once you activate the light bridge to the next door, there's going to be two grunts and a brute in the doorway. I like to try and pick them off just because it's a tight, narrow corridor and I don't want to get caught on them and then have one of the grunts pull out his grenades and just blow up instantly. So I just like to kill them all. Just shoot a rocket in there, kill the grunts, and then the brute should be following in closely. And you're just going to make your way through the next section. You can just run past all of these enemies. I like to kill them a little bit, as since I have to be running right next to some of the enemies in order to run past, they'll generally see me and they'll get a couple shots off, so I like to just make sure my shields are constantly getting topped up. So just hit a couple of them. Now as you enter the next room, we're just going to go and take a nice little look out at the view. That way we can start progressing our level. And once we're done looking out the window, we'll turn to our left and we'll be able to make our way through the rest of the level. Now these next couple sections is going to be a little tough as the rooms are very densely packed with some of the enemies, and then we're coming up pretty soon on the chieftains, and those ones are going to take a while to kill, and we're not going to be able to just snipe them like we used to. So as you make your way through this room, you don't actually have to kill anyone in this room, but I like to just kind of make sure the elite doesn't get any shots off, so I just stun them and run past. And then we're going to keep running past. All these rooms are symmetrical, so it doesn't matter if you're following my path exactly or if you go right or left, they're going to lead you to the same place. Which is good for us, since depending on which side's more open, you can just run to. You're going to make your way past these long corridors. I like to just kill this elite just because I can, but you don't have to. You can easily just run past them with no issues. And you can see my game lags just a little bit here. I really want to make sure that you're using the dynamos efficiently, because as you stun the enemies, it's pretty easy just to sneak past them and you're not going to have to worry about it. You just run up to here, activate the grav lift, and we'll make our way to the next section. And once you're up on the grav lift, we'll go through the door, and there's going to be a couple more grunts and a brute you're going to have to deal with. Again, I generally like to kill at least one of the grunts because I really don't want to have to run the risk of one of the grunts pulling out both of his grenades and just blowing me up instantly. Now this next room we're coming up on is pretty tricky, and once you go in, we're going to want to grab one of these explosive canisters, and we're actually going to want to throw it directly at the grunt that's on the plasma turret. You can see I missed, but our goal was to take him out in one hit so we don't have to worry about that, as he's pretty deadly with that. And this whole room is pretty densely packed with enemies, so we want to really take out and make sure we're using our cover efficiently, so that way they're not shooting at us, especially the brutes as they have rocket launchers, so we want to make sure we're out of their line of sight the entire time, or we're right next to them, so that way they don't shoot their rocket launchers and just blow us up instantly. Other than those two brutes, it's just going to be the grunt on the plasma turret that we should have taken out right away, and then a couple more grunts and jackals scattered throughout the room. Now you're going to be going out that side door, and now we're going to be making our way towards the next section, and these are going to be arguably the most difficult parts of this level, as we are now dealing with the chieftains. Now once you finish out taking some of the enemies here, and make sure you're going the right way like I messed up there, we'll make our way down to the first group of chieftains, and you can do this in either order, doesn't matter, but in this one I went to the left side, and you're going to be met with two chieftains, both with scrap guns. Now these ones are pretty difficult, and I'd say these is the harder of the two. And our main strategy is we're just trying to break their shields for the most part and get one of them down at a time. Once you get one of them, the other ones is going to be significantly easier as there's less damage being pumped out at you at once. And you want to make sure you're staying behind cover as much as possible, and generally using your sword and then using the rocket launcher when you're kind of farther away in order to kind of launch them farther along. Now once you get one of them down, the other one's a lot easier, as you can kind of just use your rocket launcher, and similar to the brute boss in Foundations, you can kind of just keep launching him up and away and he won't be able to hit you as often. And you want to make sure that you're using your dynamo grenades pretty much on cooldown every time you're able to stun them, as they do just a ridiculous amount of damage with their scrap guns, and you really don't want two of them laying into you at once because you will die very quickly. So that's why you see me ducking in and out of cover constantly, and then when I'm kind of farther away, I'll elect to use my rocket launcher. However, if I'm close enough to close the gap and I know I won't die, I'll switch to my sword and try to get my shields back up and running. Now one more thing about meleeing with the sword is you want to melee and then immediately get away from him, as he will start to melee you, and that does a lot of damage if he lands one of those hits. So you do not want him to land any kind of melee attack. So you want to just immediately sword in, get out, just like I did there. And we're just going to be rinsing and repeating kind of what we've been doing this entire time. Trying to get in the sword, get out, and once their shields are broken, like I said, you can just launch them away with the rocket launcher and finish them off that way. Now once you finish killing those two brutes off, there's going to be two sentinels that'll be spawning at the top. But luckily for us, they kind of just rush down at the bottom, and you can just finish them off pretty quickly that way. The third sentinel, I forgot to mention there's 3 sentinels, not 2. The third sentinel will always generally rush you, so you'll lose a little bit of shields there, but it won't be too big of a deal as we'll be getting it back. You just grab the power cell from the off room, walk through the teleporter, and make your way back to the main room. I kind of cut ahead a little bit as it just takes time just to run back, but you're just going to be following your path the way you took. Now we'll be going into the opposite room, and we're going to essentially be taking the same exact path as we did before, as both of these sections are mirrored. And we're just going to make our way, and you're going to want to actually kill this hallway, as there's a lot of enemies in this hallway, and it's right next to where the brute chieftains are, so you don't want any extra enemies coming in to fight you while you're trying to do this little mini boss fight here. Now once you enter this room, there's going to be a brute chieftain with a gravity hammer and then another shielded jetpack brute here. You're going to want to immediately rush in and just sword the jetpack brute to death. You want to kill him as quickly as possible. That way you only have to deal with the gravity hammer brute. Now the strategy to do here is you're actually going to swap out any of your weapons for the Needler. The reason why you want to do the Needler is because every time that you super combine him, it'll act as if you just shot him with the rocket launcher in terms of the explosion acceleration caused by the cowbell skull. So you can see every time I super combine him, he ends up getting launched backwards. And the only thing you have to look out for when you're doing this is making sure that you're staying in line of sight of him. And whenever he tries to lunge at you to do a gravity hammer smash, you use your thrusters to get out of the way. You don't want to get hit by that. You will lose all or most of your shields depending if how close he is to you. Now if you do lose your shields like I did here, use your dynamos efficiently. That way you can run in while he's stunned and get your shields back, and that way you at least have a little bit more time to do some more damage to him. And you see he got me with a quick melee attack, so I'm just trying to keep him at bay real quick. Managed to get off another stun before that dynamo ran out. And now I'm just getting away from him again. You want to keep your distance because you don't want him to hit you with the gravity hammer. It's a big no-no. He'll do a lot of damage to you, and he could potentially one-shot you if you're right next to him. So we're just going to keep laying into him with the Needler, and again, just try and keep your shields topped off as much as possible. You can see he just killed himself there with that last hit. Don't know what was going on there, but lucky for me. You want to make sure you pick up your weapon that you traded off this time, and you want to be quick if you happen to lose your shields at the end and didn't get them back before the sentinels come in and get you. You know, just get your sword back and start finishing off the sentinels, and you'll be a-okay to progress through the section. Again, just grab your power cell and make your way back to the teleporter, and we'll start heading back to the room to implement the power cell. You can see I'm just double checking I have both of my correct weapons equipped, and I'll make my way on. And once you plug in the power cell, you can activate the grab lifts, go up, and we'll be good. Once we make our way up the grab lift, we're going to make our way to the next room where there'll be our last final fight that we're going to actually have to deal with. And it's going to be a brute chieftain with a scrap cannon equipped. And we're just going to treat him like we did with the double chieftains with the scrap cannons, where we just duck in and out of cover, making sure that we try and stay out of line of sight of the scrap cannon as much as possible, because of how much damage it does. And we're going to utilize our rocket launcher in order to try to throw him around in order to get him to stop shooting at us as much as possible, as well as using our sword in order to get our shields back as much as possible. Now generally you can also just get away with dashing in and out, back and forth, and just meleeing him with the sword, as you'll generally get your shields back by the time he's done with his little stagger animation after you slice him once. And then you also won't die so long as you have full shields charging into him. But once we get his shields down, he's a lot easier to throw around, and we're just going to be throwing him around until the door opens up. And you don't actually have to fully finish off the chieftain, you just have to survive long enough for the door to finish opening up. Once you get in the door, we're just going to be running past pretty much most of the enemies. We might just kill this like hallway with how many enemies there are. You can generally just throw a ton of dynamos in there and you'll generally kill most of them. Just make sure you don't accidentally throw the dynamo at the door and damage yourself like I did a little bit. But after you make your way through that one, there's one more doorway we're going to have to deal with. And there's just a couple grunts that you just kill. And once you're done with that, we'll be done with this level. And we'll be making our way onto the road. Okay, so now that we're getting into the mission, The Road, it's a super simple mission. You're not going to attack anyone. It's literally just a straight shot. So I'm just going to speed up the footage here. Just follow my path. We're literally just going to be running along the right side of the mountain that we're supposed to be traveling. Normally you'd be fighting through a large army of enemies in order to get through to the next mission, Silent Auditorium. However, we're just going to be skipping everything. We're just going to be running past every enemy. The only thing you have to worry about is don't fall off the cliff. And that's it. That's literally all you have to do. Just make sure you keep your active camo up and just run along the side of the mountain here. Now, once you get to the base of the wall, we're going to need to activate the bridge, and that is going to be on that left upper platform. You just run over there, press the console button, watch the cutscene as the bridge unfolds, or skip it, up to you. And once you're done with that, you cross the bridge, and that's the end of the level. And this is why I wanted to tack it on to the end of the repository mission, as it's just so short, I didn't think it was worthy of its own video. But now we're done, and now we can move on to the House of Reckoning. Thank you everyone for watching. If you found this helpful, you can check out the rest of my Halo Infinite LASO playlists for my previous guides, and stay tuned for the upcoming LASO guides as well. As always, I'd appreciate any feedback to help improve my future guides, as I will be updating all of these LASO guides as more tips and tricks come out. And until next time, see ya!